The 80s Rewind Show podcast.
It's time to bring you yet another amazing episode. And now, welcome your host,
Rob, the face for Radio Burgess.
Enjoy the show.
Hello, it's the 80s Rewind Show with me, Rob, the face for Radio Burgess. Welcome along to today's show, and I'm so glad you're joining me on this one. I've got a fantastic show lined up for you. Before I start, I've got to say a massive hello to all my friends in America, Taiwan and Japan. Oh, yeah, see, I can check where you're listening from. I can check. So, hello to you guys. Welcome along to the show. I'm so glad you've joined us. Don't forget, I've got a website now. I've got my finger out and I've got my website, and here's the address.
www.the80spod.com.
Right, one more for those that missed it.
www.the80spod.com.
Now, if you go on there, I've got all the interviews, all the previous interviews, and there's a bit on there about myself and some links on there. And I've got some exclusive stuff just for the website that's on there as well. So if you go along and find that, it's all on there. Don't forget, you can contact me through the website. If not, you can email me direct at
The 80s Rewind Show at gmail.com.
I'm going to do it again now. God, it's getting like bingo.
The 80s Rewind Show at gmail.com.
So don't forget, if you want to contact me, you can get me through there. Right, anyway, that's the office stuff out of the way. Let's talk about today's show. I've got Ivan for you from Men Without Hats. Now, they did the safety dance in England. That was their big track for us. Now, you remember Ivan in the video. He's the guy with the big, long, floppy hair that's dancing around singing the main vocal. My friend Jane's going to tell me off this, but he's a lovely man. I get told you say that every episode. You say someone's a lovely person. I'm not lying. It's because he is a lovely person. We had a great chat. We found out a bit about the history of the band, where the name came from. We found out a bit more about the safety dance, and we spoke about the new Men Without Hats album that's just been released. Check it out on Spotify. It's more 80s than 80s, but I'll go into that in the interview. Hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Let's get to it. What sort of music in that house was there growing up? Was there a lot of music?
Yeah, growing up, my mother was a voice professor at McGill University for 25 years.
Wow.
And so we grew up we had a lot of classical music. I was a classically trained pianist, along with my brother Colin was also a pianist, and my brother Stefan was studied violin. And so every day we had two pianos in the house, and so there was two of us practicing piano and one guy practicing violin. And usually our beagle was howling because he couldn't take the violin. And my mother was probably vacuuming. My dad was probably listening to TV. So it's okay.
I bet your neighbours loved you.
Yeah, there was a lot of music. There was classical on the radio every morning growing up. We sang in the church choir. I sang in the junior choir. My mother was the lead soloist in the choir at the big church downtown Montreal. So
wow,
we were surrounded with music.
Was it mainly classical music at the time rather than contemporary pop music?
Yeah, it was kind of that, and the Beatles kind of happened at the same time while I was growing up. So the Beatles kind of happened when I was 6, 7, 8. That's when it started. So it was a mixture of classical music and the Beatles.
Wow, it's amazing how many people say the Beatles when I talk to them about the early influences. I mean, they just influenced everybody, didn't they? They're crazy.
It was kind of the only game in town.
So is it right in the 70s you studied law for a little while? You didn't go straight into music, is that right? You did law?
I did law. I studied law at the Université de Nice in the south of France, and but I was mostly following a girlfriend. So.
That's not much studied. And
Yeah.
and you was into film as well. Is that right? You studied film for a while as well.
Well, that's when after my law studies, I came back to Montreal, and I enrolled in the film and communication program at McGill University, it was nascent. It was its first year. I was in the first class of the film and communications program, and my concentration was electronic journalism. And so this is it was a long time ago. So that was it was really, really interesting. It was studying the media, and that's where I met the founding members of Men Without Hats. Was on the school benches, on the university benches.
Wow. And it's just sitting around. So was music still sort of important to you at this point when you're studying law and film, or was it one of those things where it was just, you thought I'll do this later? Was it that kind of deal?
Well, I wasn't really planning on going into music. I was planning on being going into graphic design. Actually, I used to draw quite a bit. Right. Music was just something we had to do at home. It was like I say, I was studying piano, and it was like taking out the garbage. You know, it was another chore. And when I was in law school, I used to go and sort of crate digging at the Galerie Lafayette at the big supermarkets and go dig through their crates of records. And I stumbled across this record by this band called the Sex Pistols. And I was a big Genesis fan, big Pink Floyd and Genesis fan. And I was like, this is wrong. This is wrong. Bands should not be allowed to call themselves that. This is insulting to the whole industry. And I was really upset, kind of thing. But I changed. I changed quite fast. I came back to Montreal, got into the film and communications program, started hanging out with film students, and that was like the late 70s. It was a whole kind of upheaval. Not just in music, it was art, video, new technology was coming in. There was video, there was clothing, the hairdos, everything, it was a sort of a new renaissance in popular culture. And so it was a great place to be.
That's wonderful. And you formed a punk band first, is that right? You became a punk band before you became an electro band?
Yeah.
Was it mainly the English influences that did that for you, that made you pick up punk?
We were more into like experimental. We were doing like Cramps covers and contortions, and I was listening to a lot of Fred Frith, like a lot of like a Henry Cow, like prepared guitar, like putting alligator clips on our guitar strings and stuff, like playing with big pieces of metal as a pick, and so it was a lot of just sound exploration.
Wow.
And then at one point I made the conscious decision that I wanted to reach more people. I wanted to get more commercial. I wanted, concrete music is fine, but it's a very limited audience.
It's true, yeah.
So,
mind you, it's very in vogue now. Ironically, it's quite ambient and strange is great now. Was your parents happy with the move you made to punk? Were they happy with that? Did they understand it at the time? Oh,
my parents were happy. My parents have been supportive of me. Like just whatever I do, they support me. They're just happy when I'm happy. And I remember our first show. We played our first show as a punk band, and we played a place in Montreal, which was the local punk hangout. And my parents were all excited. Can we come and see you? And we said, no. It was my two brothers, myself, and a fellow on drums. I said, no, I'd rather you didn't, because it's this new kind of music. It's punk music, and it could get violent. They slam dance. It's pretty raucous. So I'd rather you not come. It's a new thing. And so they were like, okay. And so at the show, I'm halfway through my set and I'm singing, and I look towards the back of the room, towards the exit, and there I see two little heads sticking out behind the door, and it's my parents that snuck down to the show without telling us, and they couldn't stay away. So, and they loved it. They followed us forever. My mother was my biggest Facebook troll.
That's amazing. I mean, that's great. I mean, I love the fact you got these two parents turn up with a room full of people spitting and jumping. That's
oh yeah, no,
that's just marvelous.
They were into it. My dad was an amateur musician. My dad grew up in like rural Manitoba, which is the prairies,
right?
And he played in a band with his dad. His dad was a sax player. My dad played accordion, and they had a band where they'd play barn dances.
Wow!
On the weekends. And they would also back up famous musicians that would come through town too. So my dad had a chance to play with some pretty wild guys. He played with Hank Snow and Hank Williams, and he played with a bunch of legends.
Crazy.
And these guys would come through town by themselves and play with whatever band they could pick up and move on to the next town after that.
That's great. So, like, music's running in your family, evidently it's easy. It's easy for you. That's great. So when did obviously you've gone from punk to sort of an electro band. When did the electro stuff start coming in for you? When did you think, this is for me?
Well, it was really early '80s. I was also front and center for the disco movement, and so I've always said that for me, anyways, new wave music was a combination of prog rock, like all the Genesis, Pink Floyd bands I was listening to, and disco. It was keyboard synthesizer music with a dance beat, and so that's what I brought to the table. I was ready to go. I was like I say, classically trained pianist. Synthesizers were these new toys just on the market. There wasn't too many synths out there, so it was pretty easy to navigate.
Was it expensive to do as well at the time? The synthesizers were just a fortune, weren't they? Was it an easy band to set up?
Yeah, I got financial backing. That's one of the things. My parents also sent me to a private boys' school where I met a lot of wealthy private boys, and so I actually hit up one of my schoolmates' dad for an investment, and he was one of the big, one of our big investments. It was quite an investment at the beginning. It kind of set us apart at the beginning, and the other thing that set us apart was the fact that we had no drummer, that we used rhythm boxes.
Yeah, and
we'd come to do shows and we'd get laughed at until we turned the thing on, and and everybody kind of got it, and but it was good. It was cool. It got us a lot of opening acts.
Yeah.
Our manager would sell us as the band that can set up in front of anybody, and so it's like, it's fun.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like you would like Supertramp. They got back in before they started as well. It's amazing that someone would put faith in a little tiny electro band like that, or a new wave band.
Yeah. No, there was another. His son was co-founder of the band with me. So I mean, there's another case of a parent who just backed his son. 100%. And we were lucky. We both had parents who sort of believed in us, didn't want any more information.
That's amazing. Were you under the name Men Without Hats at the time, or did you have a different name?
We started off, we were called Wave 21.
Right.
And then I joined a band called Heaven 17, and which was not the English one, obviously.
Yeah.
And then from there, I already had the name Men Without Hats. So we'd sort of had, like, before the Heaven 17, we were in the punk thing was called Men Without Hats too. So yeah, Men Without Hats was.
So where did the genesis of the name come from?
It was just. I mean, the origin is just being Canucks, being Canadian and being tough guys and not wearing toques in the freezing cold winters. And so that's kind of the genesis. There's been a lot of other interpretations, but that's kind of the the mythic one.
Cool over comfortable. Is that what the band basically was?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another good band name. If you ever go as an alias, Cool Over Comfort. That's amazing. So
you always got to be careful with cool, though, because I like to say that today's cool is tomorrow's fool. So
nice. Oh, I love it. That's great. So you started working on your first EP, and you had a few lineup changes building up to that. Was there a chance where you thought, is the band going to stay together long enough to make the EP? Because it seemed like you had a few members like come and go at the time.
Yeah, no, I could be. I think I could be in the Guinness World Book of Records for band members. It was always me. I do 100% of the songwriting, singing, programming all the keyboards. And I had two brothers, so it was they were either one of them was or both of them was in the band at one point, and it was just whoever was around kind of thing, It was, but like I say, so I've always been writing all this stuff. It's never been a co-write situation or,
And how did you write? Was it mainly piano? Was it guitar? Was it lyrics first and the music after, or?
It's mostly piano and sitting down, coming up with a chord progressions, then melodies, and then grunting process of building lyrics. And It's just nice the way it goes.
So your first EP comes out. How did it do? Did it do well? Was it sort of a slow burner? Did it take off for you?
Well, it got us we put out our own, what was it? 10-inch, I guess. Yeah. 10 inch. And then we got picked up by Stiff Records.
Oh, wow.
And they had started a new label in America called Stiff America, and decided to pick us up and distribute the record in the States. So we were stoked. I mean, we had they put it on a 12-inch. We had a 10-inch and a 12-inch, and wow, we were like, our name was getting in the paper and stuff. We were totally stoked. We were happy.
I mean that's great. I mean, Stiff picking you up is crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, no, that's, we were like on the same label as Elvis Costello. Like, I mean, wow, we were like, it was, I got into this thing because I was a fan, so, I mean, and I was just, a couple of years younger than all those guys. So like bands like the Human League were huge influences on me. Gary Newman was a huge influence on me. And so now when I go out and I'm playing with these guys, like we're, sharing stages with them, and it's awesome. It's just like, that's great.
That's amazing. So 82, the Rhythm of the Youth album comes out, which is a great album. If people are into that, new wave stuff, it's brilliant. I mean, if you want to talk about hearing your influence, I've Got the Message, I think, is the song that you can really hear the influences coming in. And I love that track. I sort of play it on repeat. Because it's kind of got that Human League 2-girl vocal going on in the background as well, isn't it? And is it French you speak in that one as well?
Yeah, there's a lot of French going on there. I was kind of naively thinking that, French is so cool. Like everybody's going to get it, and it's like,
I mean, I love that track. I mean, obviously Safety Dance is on the album, but I think if people want to hear your influences, that is the track to go to. That really lays out.
Well, that was our first single we released off the record in Canada. That was the single before we got a deal, before Safety Dance broke, before everything happened. We released I Got the Message. It was an obvious choice for me,
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that, happens. Like when they did release Safety Dance in the States as the first single, they picked another song. We were going to go do, we were heading to go do the I Got the Message video for the follow-up single to Safety Dance. Yeah. And on the way to the video, like on the plane, while I was on the plane flying over, they changed the single. They decided to change the single. And they just said, well, just, shoot I said, well, we've sort of been working on the video for this other song for 2 months. It doesn't really matter. Just stick the other song on top of it. It'll be fine. But, it was a much harder song. It was just, and so that I don't know. I think that they kind of blew it. There's it's that I Got the Message was the obvious choice. I mean, like I say, we released it first.
Yeah. I mean, kudos to you, my friend. It's a great, great, great song. So obviously Safety Dance is on the album. That's for England. That's the one that you're really known for in here. How did the genesis of that song come about? I know you spoke about it a million times, but for people that don't know.
Yeah, well, this is a true story. I was, it was the dying days of disco, the end of the 70s. And in the discotheques, every now and then, the DJ would sneak in Blondie's Heart of Glass or Rock Lobster by the B-52s, and we would just go crazy. Hey, wow, new wave. And we'd get up and we'd start pogoing, which is just jumping up and down, bouncing off each other, the precursor to the mosh pit and to slam dancing. And the bouncers and the people dancing around us had no idea what was going on, thought we were fighting. So we started getting kicked out every time a new wave song would be playing. And I literally went home and wrote a song about it. It's just too much. I was getting tired of getting bounced. But, we won in the end, so it's okay.
Yeah, I mean, the album version to the single is different. So was that a decision you made, or was that a record company decision to make it different?
That was a record company decision. It was one of those things. They said, you guys got to do a 12-inch. What's that? Oh, you just take the song, you stretch it out a bit, I said, okay. And I was trying to emulate Grandmaster Flash.
Right.
I said, those guys, they're talking. They do all this talking stuff. We got to do some talking on it. If we're going to stretch it out, let's do some talking stuff.
Yeah.
And so that's it, the spelling and the talking. And
the video is really unusual for that song. It's just,
it is. I think that's one of the things that gives it its lasting power, because everybody was expecting some spiked haired guy with pointy shoes and zippers all over his clothes. And they got like some kind of Peter Panish, Robin Hood kind of, who knows what it is, you know? And so it, you know, it's kind of timeless. You know, you watch that video now. I mean, you watch a lot of other videos, you kind of laugh and chuckle and look at their hair, look at the, you know.
Yeah.
And this one, you can't really do that because it's like, wow, this is like, you know, could have been shot yesterday. It's timeless. It's like a Western, you know.
I mean, what I love about the video the most is how sinister you look through the whole video.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
You're clearly a lovely, lovely person, but in the video you look so sinister. It's just crazy. I'm amazed you didn't get loads of film roles thrown your way after that. You know, like if Alan Rickman was busy, you know, is Ivan free, you know.
No, the phone hasn't been going off the hook for sure.
That's great. And then obviously the album came out after that one as well. And the first track was called, is it Don't Dance? No Dance, isn't it?
Yeah.
From Folk of the 80s Part 3. Was that a backlash to the previous single, or was that just, you know, something you was working on, or?
Oh, no, that was a backlash. That was an answer to what was going on. I was really sort of, I guess, you know, it's youth. I mean, it's you know, you're sort of very engaged. I was very engaged when I back then in the 80s. To me, the top 40 or whatever it was a huge political platform,
right,
as far as I was concerned, you know. And so we had to use our time wisely. We had to, you know, say things that made sense and sort of, you know, didn't sort of do harm to anybody.
Yeah.
But it is, you know, like I tell people a lot of times, it's like being in a band. Sometimes it's like being on a sports team. It's like being on a hockey team, you know. It's like there's only so many spots on that top 40, you know. There's a lot more bands and a lot more hockey teams than there are than places on the top 10, you know. There's a lot more than top 10 bands in the world. So it's this always this sort of thing about camaraderie and in the music business, and everybody's sort of palsy. And it's like, yeah, I like him as long as his single isn't higher on the charts than mine, you know. It's like, so it's just weird. It was, you know, it was, but like I say, it was fun times. It was all really, really a lot of fun. It was a good time, great time. I mean, how I'm turning 65 this year, but I feel like my timeline has captured a really great chunk of music history, you know. Like when I was born, like Elvis was on the radio, you know, and the Beatles came right after that. And then the end of the 60s, the Summer of Love, and then the 70s with all the heavy metal and hard rock, you know, creations, and then disco, and then punk, new wave, and on and on and on. Just like, I got it all, you know. See, the only thing I missed was like Dixieland jazz, you know. It's like,
I mean, it's fair to say, it's fair to say as well, like, your influences followed the music as well. Like in 91, you released an album, and the record company banned it because it was guitar based, wasn't it? Is that right? Because you were influenced by Nirvana at the time.
So you're talking about the Sideways album that we made, yeah. We made that record. I was hanging out with a lot of friends in Montreal who were into like Nirvana and a lot of grunge band. The grunge scene was just starting off, and I was hanging out and jamming with a lot of, you know, young musicians, and I had a record left on my contract with the label, and I told them, I said, listen, just give me half of what, you know, what the budget says on the album, and let me do exactly what I want. And they went for it. Anytime a record label can save that much money, they'll definitely go shoot the artistic values out the window. And so they let us do what we wanted. And when they heard it, they just like, this is like, we can't, you know, we don't know what to do with this.
Wow.
And we were trying to tell them, well, you know, little birdie told me that this is the kind of music people are going to be listening to big time for the next 10 years.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, I don't know. We don't know what to do with it. I'm sorry, but whatever. It was like that was a fun record to make. Like not all records are fun to make, and you can usually hear it, but this one was a lot of fun to make. We had a great time. We had a great tour too. We went across North America with it, and it was awesome.
Has it been released? I couldn't seem to find it when I was looking for it. Has it ever been released in the UK?
It was released in North America. I don't know if it was ever released in the UK or Europe or anything. I don't know.
I'm just interested to see what it would sound like. Yeah, with your vocals over electric guitar, but it's amazing.
Yeah, like I said, it was a fun record to make. We had a great time making it, and
yeah, it was just a great experience all around. So you've just recently released a new album again. Men Without Hats Part 2 again.
Yeah, again Part 2,
which I love. I think that's an amazing title, and I've been playing it like for the week, and I just think it's a strange album because it sounds more 80s than the 80s, if that makes any sense. It's I know you're a man of that period who released songs in that period, but it sounds really 80s. Was it an easier album to make because you can get more synthesizers and stuff and emulators now than you couldn't back in the day? Was it? It just
maybe because I'm older. I mean, I guess it's an easy. The things are coming easier to me now. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel anymore. We weren't. Since we made a record in 2012 where we really consciously tried to like go back and make it sound like it did back then. And this was kind of a continuation of that too. We didn't try to capitalize on any trends or anything. There's no auto-tune. There's no rap on this one. And so it's kind of a good cross section of songs too, because it's an album that kind of morphed along the way as we were making it. And the songs there are some brand new songs that we wrote in the studio while we were doing it. There's some songs that I wrote over the last 10 years. We've been on the road touring all over the world, and I wrote a whole bunch of songs in the back of the bus and just in the hotel rooms and stuff like that. And then we went back in the vault and we found some stuff. We found some demos, a couple of songs 2 or 3 songs that were just there and just waiting to be reworked a bit. And so it's a big, it's kind of like almost a 30 or 40 year span of songwriting too. So it's, it was fun. There was another fun project. We did it the old school way. We rented a house in the middle of nowhere and filled it full of gear and lived there and just got up in the morning and made music until we were too tired to make any more music, and went to bed and woke up the next day, did the same thing for like 9 months, 10 months, and that was just the way they used to make records. And we had fun. We had a great time doing it. It was my brother Colin, myself, and Sho Murray, our guitar player, just the 3 of us, and a family of peacocks, and and that was it.
Wow.
And
it sounds amazing. Is All Into Stars, was that one of the original ones or one of the newer ones? Because that's a fantastic song.
That was written on the road. That was written in the back of a tour bus. That song's it's between 5 and 10 years old.
I mean, if people are listening to the podcast and you listen to the album on Spotify straight afterwards, go straight to that track. It's absolutely fantastic. And In the World as well, that's another great one as well. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic stuff. I mean, you would never know it's like not made in the 80s. That's the strange thing about the album. It sounds like you've just dug it up out of the ground and gone. I'm
glad. Thank you. That's kind of what we're known for. So it's somebody's got to do it. It's like somebody's got to keep the torch burning.
That's amazing. And what's next for you? Are you out on tour? Are you doing a new album or?
We're going both. We're starting. We have shows. We're getting back on the road very shortly, and we have another record coming out. We don't know if we're going to call it part 3 or what, but we recorded a lot more songs than we needed. So we have another album basically ready to go almost, and that's it. We're in a roll. We want to make. It's been 10 years since our last one. The last one was 2012. So we're going to try and make records at a faster clip this time.
Fantastic. Will you be touring the UK this time for any UK fans that want to see you?
Hopefully. We had to cancel one a few months ago due to just world situation.
Yeah.
But we are definitely going to get back there. We haven't played in the UK enough as far as I'm concerned. So we'll be getting there.
And what's the best place for people to find out about your tours and to get your new albums and information about the band?
SafetyDance.com. And my personal Facebook page is a good place to go to. Ivan Doroschuk on Facebook. But SafetyDance.com is the easy one. That'll send you everywhere.
Oh, thanks. Ivan, it's been wonderful talking to you today. Thank you so much for talking to me. It's been brilliant.
Thanks a lot, mate.
If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe and leave us a review.